Welcome to it, sports fans. It is the 22nd of January, episode 21, the FTB TV podcast available on YouTube, iTunes, and Podbean. If you're on Android, I'd say Podbean is probably the easiest for you, YouTube for everybody. But otherwise, if you're on iTunes, the FTB TV podcast, welcome to it, episode 21. What are we talking about today? Manchester United, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he's come in. What do I think for the rest of the season? We'll talk about that. I'll let you know what my thoughts are on Sarri and his sort of tenure at Chelsea so far and what should happen with that. Lastly, of course, Rassie Erasmus. He dropped an interesting interview, which I thought was very, very revealing in the SA Mag, the latest SA Rugby Mag. Rassie, we'll talk about Sarri, and first up we'll talk about Manchester United. Remember, the FTB TV podcast, go and give us a like on iTunes, Podbean, of course, if you're on Android, Podbean, that is P-O-D-Bean, that is P-O-D-B-E-A-N. Download the app and you can find the FTB TV podcast on there. Subscribe, like, share, interact, give me your opinions. Of course, you can comment on all of this. And then, of course, on Facebook, we are From the Bleachers TV. So let's get underway. That's the intro. Let's get into the good stuff. Manchester United, of course, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the baby-faced assassin, famous for coming off the bench and always rescuing Man United. He's almost done that again, or so many tell me. The baby-faced assassin has come in, and he's got 7 in a row. I thought I'd give my prospects on what I think Manchester United will do from here. They're currently in 6th, 3 points behind Chelsea, and tied with Arsenal. That's after 7 wins on the spin, 6 in the Premier League. Listen, you've met parents who think that their kids are never the issue. Like, there are some parents who just think their kids are never the issue. You know the type of parents I'm talking about. You know, they boast about hanging out with their kids at nightclubs and with their daughter's friends. They're like, me and my daughter, we go to the nightclubs together. These types of people, you know, they let their kids, like, drink and drive. And then when their kids crash their car, it's like, oh, this country needs to fix the potholes. So you let your daughter drink and drive. But when she crashes, this country needs to fix the potholes. You know the type. Their favorite message is, I'm my daughter's best friend. It's like, hey, Miranda, your daughter needs a parent. She's got friends. She's 20. You're 50. Get a grip. See, the problem with parents who have never been hard on their kids from the ages of like 1 to 18, right, is that now it's too late when she's 20. Like, if you don't train a puppy right to go outside, it's constantly going to wee on the carpet. By the time it's 4, it's too late. It's used to weeing on the carpet. Now, it's almost impossible to retrain. If you don't get the puppy within the first 6 months, forget it. That train has left the station for good. It's going to be a nightmare. Listen, Miranda, this isn't the sisterhood of traveling pants. This is real life. We're talking about real life right now. It's real problems. You know, the problem with being friends with a 20-year-old is that they don't really want a friend. They want people to affirm their behavior, whether it's right or wrong. 20-year-olds don't want friends. They want somebody to say yes all the time. Because that's how you think when you're 20. You've never been wrong and you're bulletproof. Listen, Miranda, the problem isn't the potholes. It's your daughter drinking 2 bottles of wine and drinking. Proper parents focus on the issues. They don't reaffirm negative behavior. That's what parents have to do. 20-year-olds don't want friends. They want people to reaffirm their behavior, right or wrong. Manchester United right now are probably in the worst position they've been in since Fergie. That's since 2013. I think they've got 3 really major issues on their hands. Number one, I think for the first time in United's modern day history, players are making comments to the media, right, that are not aligned or approved by Manchester United and its management. And there have been no consequences for that. How do I know that? Because there are reports that have come out from Sanchez and Pogba saying they are happier now. Trust me, there is not one football club in the world, especially Man United, that wants that coming out. Because it is all about, excuse the pun, a united front. It's always been about that at Man United. Listen, Man United have always been a no player talks club. The manager talks and everybody falls in line. That's how it's been for 30 years. And that is how it's always been. That's how it is at all the big clubs. Issue number 2, I think the interim manager is defending a bunch of players who've shown now that they will down their tools, and it's been 2 managers in a row now. Right? What happens when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has to drop the hammer in the future, right? How does this manager drop the hammer, right? And control the players and get them to do what he wants. Not what they want to do, what he wants is if he's never dropped the hammer before. Because it's the honeymoon phase right now. Listen, these players know now. They've seen 2 managers come and go through their power. These players know they can sulk and the manager will be gone. Number 3, and most importantly, I think the Manchester United board have got 3 managers very, very wrong. And the issue that faces Solskjaer now is that when the new manager syndrome honeymoon wears off, how do these players have any faith that the next manager is the right guy? Forget Solskjaer. It's the honeymoon period now, but when that ends, not only are the players going to question the board for getting Solskjaer, because the bump will come, but the players will have no faith that the next guy will be the right guy. And you know players need to play with a target and they need to play with authority in mind. I don't care what the club or who the player is. You see, even if you think Moyes, Van Gaal and Mourinho are all the worst managers ever tactically, right? Even if you think that, you can't defend lack of effort from players, especially not a lack of effort at Manchester United. However, and I think this is the difficult part for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for the rest of the season, is that in the Manchester United DNA now, 3 managers in a row have experienced these players downing tools. So some of the players who were under Moyes are still around. All of the players who were under Van Gaal are still around. And indeed, all of Mourinho's players are very much still around. It's now not an anomaly, it's become a pattern. Once you could say, okay, it's the manager. Twice it gets dodgy. 3, it's a pattern. It's behavior now. Now it hasn't gone from a reaction, it is behavior. It's now in the DNA of the club. And Solskjaer has never had to deal with players that are bigger than him. He's only been at Mulder. And when he has to drop the hammer, it's now the honeymoon phase. And when that ends, he should have dropped the hammer coming in. How is he going to drop the hammer when it's time? These players have down tools before. I think the biggest misconception on earth is that just because you get paid for something, you're a professional. No. There's a huge difference between being professional and being a professional in behavior. Listen, you can't get paid millions and still be unprofessional. Being a professional has nothing to do with ability. Everybody can play at that level. It's all about behavior. Professional people never change their effort level, especially top footballers, just because they're unhappy. Professional players never change their effort because they're unhappy. If you're really professional, I mean the great ones, not the good ones, the great ones. Listen, you can't have the poster boy of the club throwing tantrums on the field with previous managers where the other teams can see it. Because at this level, when other players see that, they know you're weak. And they know they can push. And it hasn't come yet, but it will come. Because if he can do it with one manager, if he can do it with 2 managers, and he is supposedly the leader. How do I know that? I always say in corporates, they will always talk to you. You know where you lay the blame? It's the guy who earns the most money. Corporates are always talking to you. What are they telling you is whoever earns the most money, that is where you put the blame when things go wrong. That's why you get paid. Listen, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't have a hope of top 4 because the speed hump will come and ability isn't enough when adversity strikes. Believe me, I've watched football for long enough. It's all about character. All of the top teams can play. A manager can't have a weak dressing room. There's only so much that a manager can do. Winning teams are built around strong dressing rooms. Man United, listen to this, as the leadership core have Pogba, Lingard, Young, and De Gea as senior players. Who of those players has shown leadership? Even when Vidic was there. Remember, some of these guys were around when Vidic, Ferdinand, Carrick, when those guys were there. Pogba, Lingard, Young, De Gea. Those are the senior players. Think of that as your core at Manchester United. Is that Man United? You've seen Steve Bruce. You've seen Roy Keane. You know what a leadership core in a Red Devil shirt looks like. And I've heard the comparison of the De Gea, Di Matteo comparison. Listen here. When I tell you that Chelsea had Drogba, Lampard, Terry, Cech, Ashley Cole, Essien, and Malouda in that dressing room, the manager just had to motivate those guys. Listen to these names: Drogba, Lampard, Terry, Cech, Ashley Cole, Michael Essien, and Florent Malouda. Compare that with a leadership group of Pogba, Lingard, Young, and De Gea. Be honest now. If you're Man United and that is your leadership group, that is scary. This is Manchester United, and all I ever hear is that the players need an arm around them. Ole can't be the friendly stepdad forever, right? My prediction is United will finish 6th. Not because of talent. It's got nothing to do with the talent. The talent is off the charts. We can see that. We can see flashes of it. But entitled players, unfortunately, when the speed hump comes, they've shown it. We'll down the tools when it gets hard with one manager. We'll down the tools when it gets hard with 2 managers. Being paid for something and being professional are not the same thing. Listen, Miranda, when your daughter drinks and drives and crashes her cute Mini Cooper, it's not the potholes. It's her, and worst of all, it's you enabling her. Manchester United have shown the players that if they sulk, it's not them. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has never had to deal with a dressing room of this size, with a bunch of players with this much power, and no leaders in the dressing room. Once again, just because you get paid, it doesn't make you professional. Man United to finish in 6th, and I think this Ole Gunnar Solskjaer situation will have hindered United more than it would have progressed them. Because I don't see Pochettino coming to join, and they'd struggle to get Zidane. Speaking of struggling, Maurizio Sarri's having a good one at Chelsea, isn't he? He's really having a good one. Of course, Chelsea losing to Arsenal 2-0 on the weekend. Have you ever heard the saying, the young kids are saying, the cool kids back in my day when I was young, like 100 years ago, we used to say, denial isn't just a river in Egypt. See what I did there? It's a bit of colloquial street talk. Colonial. It's certainly not colonial. It's colloquial street talk. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. It's a little double entendre. Listen, you ever had a friend, right? And you had to sit him down and tell him, dude, I think your girlfriend's cheating on you. Like, I saw her at the movies holding hands with someone. And he's like, no, that was her cousin. She told me they went to the movies. I'm like, no, dude, your Swedish girlfriend, Inga Sorensen, was holding hands with a black guy. That's not her cousin. And he's like, oh, it must be her adopted brother. Like, dude, here is a Facebook Live video right now of them making out. No, there must be a tight-knit family, he'll tell you. It's like, bro, Siboniso Khumalo is in my indoor soccer team. He is not related to Inga. He's like, I have to talk to her about it. I have to hear her side. I know her. She wouldn't do this. We've been together for 2 months. It's like, oh my goodness, this guy. Right? You ever had a friend like that? Denial isn't just a river in Egypt. Listen, Mauricio Sarri recently showed me that some people are beyond help. Like, seriously, they are beyond help. You know, Sarri currently has 2 players in Conte and Hazard who are the best and second best in their position in the Premier League and possibly in the world. Hazard certainly the best player in the Premier League. Fernandinho undoubtedly the best DM in the league. Conte second for me. Right, Conte won 2 titles in a row and a World Cup as a defensive midfielder, both at Leicester and at Chelsea. And Hazard is easily the most gifted dribbler the Premier League has probably ever seen in that left wing number 10 role. Both are being played out of position. Like, why? Sarri had 2 strikers. You don't even need the strikers to score goals. Just put Hazard in his best position. Hazard is clearly Chelsea's only threat, and you nullify his running and dribbling ability by making him a lone striker. And here's the cracking part, is you play 3 defensive midfielders. So he never has support because the width provided by Willian and Pedro is they are really wide. So you're asking Hazard to do the job of a number 9. So he's not even playing as a false 9, he's playing as a genuine number 9, where Chelsea are playing the ball constantly into his feet with his back to massive defenders. So you nullify the best runner and dribbler with the ball, possibly the best dribbler the Premier League's ever seen. But you play 3 defensive midfielders. Listen, Jorginho can't run. And he's a liability if Chelsea can't get the pass going, right? If Jorginho is what he wanted, he already had a guy with no legs as a playmaker in Fabregas. And Fabregas could make killer passes. So he spent 50 million on a worse version of a player he already had. Jorginho can't run. And you know what was incredible to me? Again, I've brought it up before, but the substitutions, it's so baffling. Because again, at 2-0 down, with no striker on the field, Mauricio Sarri waited until the 63rd minute to put on his first substitution. A deep-lying playmaker for a deep-lying playmaker. Barkley for Kovacic at 2-0 down in the 63rd minute. At 68 minutes, still 2-0 down, a striker finally comes on. Surely he's going for it now. He's not. No, he's not. Because Willian's coming off. He's still in a 4-3-3 formation with 3 defensive mids on. Barkley's on. Conte's on. Jorginho's on. It's 68 minutes and Chelsea are still 2-0 down. In the 80th minute, still 2-0 down, Hudson-Odoi is coming on. Great. Surely one of the 3 DMs that are still on, so it's one of the 3 defensive midfielders that are still on, because he's bringing Hudson-Odoi, an attacking winger, number 10, he's going to come on, and he's got 3 defensive midfielders on the field, Conte, Barkley, and Jorginho. He's going to pull one of them off, because it's 80 minutes, and you're 2-0 down. Surely. No, he pulls Willian off. 2-0 down, and they've been 2-0 down since the 39th minute, Chelsea. He hasn't changed the 4-3-3 shape. They haven't gone any more attacking, and he's made 3 subs. Keep in mind, something I haven't mentioned is that David Luiz is still, for whatever reason, starting ahead of Christensen, right? And this isn't the worst part. So everything I've told you now, that's not where the horror show, right, ends. The horror of Sarri was incredibly not the selection and the tactical disaster, which he is refusing to change. And we've seen it rear its ugly head against Wolves, against West Ham, and now against Arsenal. But Sarri's playing in a system where they are clearly not comfortable. Conte in particular went from the best defensive midfielder arguably in the past 2 seasons, I think Fernandinho is the man right now, to being a mediocre. He could play for Newcastle now, going box to box. Maurizio Sarri came out this week and said it's difficult to motivate these players. Listen, when players down their tools, you can't be the 3rd best defense in the league. That doesn't happen because defense is all about attitude, especially in the Premier League. If players down their tools, you cannot defend in the Premier League because you've got to chase things, you've got to block, there are crosses coming in. So it's impossible. It's impossible that the players aren't motivated because anybody who's watching can see that Chelsea players are on it. The effort isn't the problem. Why does he need 3 DMs when Conte and Kovacic are tremendous athletes and they don't give the ball away? Jorginho doesn't give Chelsea, I could understand if Jorginho was giving Chelsea that control in the midfield with the ball. Like, imagine if Chelsea actually protected the back 4 with Conte. They'd never concede. They're the 3rd best defense now, and Jorginho is unbelievably slow. It's unbelievable. Any attacker is breezing past Jorginho. So once they bypass the midfield, it's 2 passes past them. Every winger, every number 10 is directly in on the back 4, and Chelsea still have the 3rd best defense in the league. Listen, sometimes things just aren't working. And the problem with 60-year-olds, right, is they don't change. They are who they are at that age. Maurizio Sarri has shown his hand now. He will not change. My biggest concern as a Chelsea fan is that Roman Abramovich is either selling the club, or because he's not able to come into the country, he cannot wield the axe as he would like. He's got Marina there running the club, but it's not the same as having the boss there. If Roman doesn't wield the axe now, and Arsenal finish above Chelsea, which isn't impossible, I don't see United finishing higher than 6th, Arsenal are the threat, then Hazard is definitely gone. He's not doing another season of no Champions League. And then Chelsea have a problem like no other. Listen, Sarri's never won a title. Why should Chelsea trust that another season of him is the way to go when he's this far back? With many of these players are in their prime. So it's not like any of these players have fallen off a cliff. Even Willian, who's been poor, I think he's out of... The system doesn't work for Willian without a striker. Willian likes to give and get from the striker just as Hazard likes to do. And Willian's brilliance is getting to the byline and whipping something in. So all of these players are players that have at least 2 titles, some 3. So they know how to win, and all of them are in their prime. There isn't a Chelsea player on the field right now outside of David Luiz who has fallen off a cliff. You cannot blame the quality of the players. The players are in their physical, they're at their prime. All of them. They're all between that 28 and 32 age. So Maurizio Sarri has never won. There's no reason to think time or new players will change that. Thing is, square pegs, they don't go in round holes. Sarri is what they call an artifact. He's an analog manager in a digital time, and Roman Abramovich has to wield the axe now, or Hazard is going. Roman, do the right thing. It's not working. It's not working, and that's okay. It happened with Scolari before. You can do it again. No Champions League, no Hazard, big problem. Sarri out. Speaking of big problems, I was having a look at the latest SA Rugby mag. Let me switch over to a bit of rugby. Love a bit of rugby, love the Springboks. And I read something which really troubles me. The Springboks had, by Springbok standards, I guess over the last 10 years, a tremendous season, but they were awful. But I read a magazine article by the Springbok coach called Rassie Erasmus. I was like, wow. So I read this article about how Rassie Erasmus felt like Pieter-Steph du Toit proved him wrong in 2018. What stunned me was that, a Springbok player was being praised for no longer missing tackles and improving his body position as a ball carrier. That's what he was being congratulated for, a Springbok player. This is the essence of the article. You know what this tells me is that South African rugby still looks for big rugby players rather than skilled rugby players. Because those are technical skills. Those are things you should be taught at 9, 10, 11, going into high school at 14, 15. I don't want people at Springbok level to be taught body position. That's not the place to be learning fundamental skills. Right? What it tells me is they said, he's huge, which he is. He's a massive specimen, that Pieter-Steph du Toit. Get him in the team. No ball skills, don't worry about that. What are his skills like? Don't worry about it. Can he tackle? No, but put him in the team. What's his ball carrying like? He's big, he's going to ball carry. Oh, his ball carrying's terrible. Don't worry about it. He's big, get him in the team. And, there's this notion in South African rugby that work rate as a loose forward puts you forward for special attention and mention. Like, why? Why is this? Why is work rate a thing that people talk about as though it's special? I expect my number 6 and 7 to be the hardest working players on the field when I'm at under 14 level. From under 14 upwards, it's fundamental. The guys who cover the most ground are your number 6 and number 7. We know this. Right? We know this. We know they should be they should be at least the fittest in the pack, if not the team. But they've got to be the fittest guys in the pack. So I don't want to hear my number 6, number 7 being praised for work rate. In order to get into any top level team as a number 6 or 7, work rate is a given, especially in 2019. It's a given. It's fundamental. But I tell you what, Pieter-Steph du Toit, for anybody who's watched, he'd be too slow for the 2007. And Jake White is size obsessed, or was size obsessed. He'd be too slow for 2007 to wear the number 7 jersey because Juan Smith was far quicker than him, had a higher tackle rate. And listen, Rassie praised him for that hit on Kieran Reid. Juan Smith was putting in those hits every 2 or 3 games. Stop praising people for the fundamentals of rugby. Your blindside flank should be putting in massive hits in rugby at Springbok level, at All Black level for Ireland. That shouldn't be special mention. Work rate and tackling are fundamental for a 6 or a 7. Why is this being praised still? These are fundamental skills, tackling and work rate. We shouldn't be giving special praise for that. Listen to me, if a player is being praised in 2019 for a skill set that would have made him null and void in 2007, right? Because essentially he's being praised for body position and tackling. In 2007, that was null and void because Juan Smith was offloading in the tackle in 2007. Listen, the problem here is that Rassie will go back to being the director of rugby. Basically, what that means, he will control the mandate for what schools and provincial South African rugby teams provide to the BOK level. Rassie, newsflash, everyone's big now. Everyone's fast. And most importantly, New Zealand have skills as well. So the size isn't a thing. Everyone's big and fast. The All Blacks have that already. And then there's the skill, which you need. It shouldn't be negotiable. Listen, South African rugby has a decision to make. If he stays, what it tells me is that we have standards that wouldn't have been good enough in 2007 for the types of players we're picking, which is size over skill. Right? Nobody's going to tell me Pieter-Steph du Toit is better than Juan Smith. We should have evolved from Juan Smith. Juan Smith is probably the greatest Springbok forward. He's right up there with Andre Venter. He's probably the greatest Springbok flank we've ever had, in my eyes. Andre Venter, I'll debate it with you all day. I love Andre Venter. If you pick him, I would understand. Listen, England, Wales, and Ireland are now easily more skilled than South Africa and better coached. We can see that. New Zealand and those nations from the global north can no longer be bullied. The Springboks are one-dimensional and getting worse. How are you getting worse? The director of rugby is living in 2007 and worse. What he's saying is that a player now, Pieter-Steph du Toit, surprised him because he displayed skills that he should have had in under 14 and wouldn't have been good enough for the international stage in 2007. Pieter-Steph du Toit he's too slow to play lock. Forget about flank. He's too slow to play lock in international rugby. 24 tackles against New Zealand is not a highlight. 14-year-olds should be congratulated for that, not a Springbok international flank. I expect work rate. I expect you to tackle. It flabbergasts me that these are highlights. It flabbergasts me that fundamental skills by the Springbok coach. This isn't junior Bok. This isn't 16s. This isn't 15s. We are praising a guy who has to play against Kieran Reid, Ardie Savea for the next 5 years for being able to tackle. Congratulations, he can tackle properly. He surprised everyone because he can tackle properly. Not a mention of his skills. Apparently his skills are improving. At Bok level, if your skills are still improving, you shouldn't be in the green shirt. Pieter-Steph du Toit is not the problem. He can't pick himself. The bigger worry, if you're a Springbok fan, and we need to keep a close eye on it, if Rassie Erasmus is setting the mandate, it tells you the mentality of SA Rugby is stuck in 2007 and worse. SA Rugby, choose wisely. That's it for the FTB TV podcast. Check it out, iTunes, Podbean, YouTube. I want 15 stars. That's 3 times 5 stars on iTunes. Give us a rating, interact, and we'll see you, of course, on Facebook as well. The FTB TV podcast. Otherwise, From the Bleachers on Facebook. Subscribe, like, share, and interact. Give me your comments and let me know what you think of what I have said today. Of course, we spoke about Man United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's prospects for the rest of the season. Maurizio Sarri at Chelsea. And my concerns about Rassie Erasmus. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments below, of course. And like and share the FTB TV podcast. Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, and Facebook. Until tomorrow, have a good one.